Hello again and welcome to our first video for Section 9 of DMA 10, Perimeter and Area. In this video we're going to cover some geometry definitions and formulas for basic shapes and then do some practice with each of the three basic shapes that we'll be covering. In the next video we're going to look at some more complex shapes and do some applications and word problems. Let's start with some definitions. The perimeter of a shape is the distance along the outside of the shape, or we can say it's the sum of its edges. Remember, sum means to add. We can add up all the side lengths to find the perimeter of the shape. Perimeter is always measured in standard units of length, so things like feet, inches, meters, miles, centimeters, etc. Okay. When you're thinking about perimeter, think of things like this, like installing a fence around a garden that's going outside the area of the garden. Okay, or walking around the distance of a soccer field, that would be a perimeter, or sewing the border on a quilt. A border goes along the edge. Those are all different ideas that we can associate with perimeter. The area of a shape is the amount of space the shape encloses, or we say the inside space of the shape. It's always measured in square units of length. So the units are squared: feet squared, inches squared, meter squared, etc. When we think about area, we can think about things like replacing a carpet on a floor. We're going to cover up that whole floor and take up the whole inside space of the floor. So that would be an example of area. If we're going to install sod on a lawn, we would place it over the entire lawn and cover up the whole surface. Or painting a wall. We're not just going to paint around the edges of the wall, we're going to paint the whole inside area of that wall. The first shape that we're going to look at is the square. The square we are going to label the side length S, and with squares all sides are equal. So we could even call this side length S and this side length S as well. The perimeter of the square, remember perimeter is just the sum of all the sides, is going to be S plus S plus S plus S. Okay? But algebraically, we've got 4 S's. We would express this as 4 times the side length, 4S. The area, or the inside of the shape, is going to be the side length times the side length. So side times side. But algebraically, again, we can represent this as side squared. So we need to find the area and the perimeter of a square now with side lengths of 7 feet. So all the sides are going to be 7 feet long. So for the area, that's going to be the side, remember that formula is S squared. So we would plug in 7 for S, we get 7 squared, which is 7 times 7, or 49. Remember when we place our units, we're going to use square units for area, so this would be 49 feet squared. For the perimeter, that's 4 times the side length, or in this case 4 times 7, which is going to be 28 feet. We don't square the feet for the perimeter because it's just a linear distance. Next we have the rectangle. With rectangles we measure the side's length and width. It doesn't matter which one you call the length and the width, but generally the longer one is going to be the one that we'll call the length, and the shorter would be the width. And opposite sides are going to be equal, so this would also be a length up here at the top. Over on this side this would be a width as well. The perimeter for a rectangle is going to be a length plus a width plus another length plus another width. But if we wanted to shorten that algebraically, we've got 2 lengths, so we could say that's 2 lengths plus 2 width, 2 width. And the area for the rectangle is going to be the length times the width. Okay. So for this example, we want to find the area and perimeter of a rectangle with a length of 12 inches and a width of 4 inches. So our area is going to be length times width. So that's going to be 12 times 4 inches, or 48 inches squared. Square inches because we're doing an area. The perimeter is going to be 2 lengths plus 2 widths. So we could say that's 2 times 12 plus 2 times 4. We'll have to do the multiplication first. 2 times 12 is going to be 24, plus 2 times 4 will be 8. So when we add those two together, we'll get 32 inches. Regular inches, not squared, because we're finding perimeter. Now let's look at triangles. I've drawn 3 triangles here for you because there are several different types of triangles. When finding the area of a triangle, the important measurements are going to be the base of the triangle and the height of the triangle. The formula for area is, you may have seen it as 1/2 times the base times the height, but since we're not dealing with fractions in this course, I would suggest writing it as base times height divided by 2. Again, height can be taken from several different places. In this first triangle here, if we have the base at the bottom, the height is defined as the length from the base to the opposite point that makes a right angle or a 90-degree angle. Okay, for this type of triangle, that right angle to the opposite tip happens to be inside the triangle. For the second triangle here, this is what's called a right triangle. We have a 90-degree angle right here at one of the corners. If this side is the base on the bottom, okay, the line that goes from that makes a right angle to that base and goes to the opposite side happens to be this other side here. So in this case, the height is the side of the triangle for a right triangle. This is what we call an obtuse triangle because we have a big obtuse angle here. Okay, the line that makes a 90-degree angle to the base and goes to the opposite point happens to be outside of the triangle. So in this case, we're going to measure the height from the outside. So keep this in mind when you're dealing with triangles. Height can be taken from many different locations, either inside, it could be a side, or outside the triangle. The perimeter for a triangle, there isn't really a fancy name for it. Sometimes we just label the sides of the triangle A, B, and C, and we would say that the perimeter is the sum of those 3 sides. We just add the sides together, A plus B plus C. So in this example, we're going to find the area and the perimeter of the triangle that's pictured here. Okay, remember the area for the triangle will represent that as the base times the height divided by 2. Okay, what's the base of this triangle? It's going to be 8 centimeters times the height. In this case, that 90-degree angle is going to be inside the triangle, and so that that line there, the height will be 5, and then we divide this by 2. Okay, we do the multiplication on the top first. That's going to be 8 times 5 is 40, divided by 2. We divide 40 by 2, we're going to get 20, and our label for this for an area will be centimeters squared. The perimeter is just going to be the sum of all the sides. So in this case, it's going to be 6 plus 8 plus 6, which will equal 20 centimeters. To review, in this video we defined the definitions of area and perimeter, and we looked at the formulas for squares, rectangles, and triangles, and then we practiced with each of those shapes. In our next video, we're going to cover some more complex shapes and look at some word problems.